Sabina says hello, Andreas. Option 1 of 2 is that, you Sabina? Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2 is that, Sabina says yes, of course. I'm still here. Part of me will always be here with you. We haven't talked in so long. Why? Option 1 of 3 I ran out of things to say. Option 2 of 3 everything fell apart. Option 3 of 3 you reminded me of August. Option 1 of 3 I ran out of things. Option 3 of 3 player says remind me. Sabina says it wasn't all bad, Andreas. We lost him, but we had 4 years together. They were happy years, weren't they? Option 1 of 2 they were. Option 2 of 2 it's hard to remember. Option 1 of 2 player says but then they ended. And it felt like life ended with them. Sabina says I know. It was hard for both of us. I don't blame you for anything. And you should stop blaming yourself. It may be too late for us, but it's not too late for you, Andreas. It's not too late for Magdalene. Player says yes, Magdalene. I have to help her. Sabina says you can, Andreas. But you have to leave this place behind for good. Player says I know. I can. I will. Sabina says you will. Player says thank you, Sabina. Will I ever see you again? Sabina says not in this place. But maybe someday, in a better place. In a better dream. Casper says Master Andreas. Player says oh. Casper. It's really you. Casper says it's so good to see you again, Master. Option 1 of 2 how can you say that? Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2 how can you say that? Player says you died because of me. Casper says I just wanted to help you, Master Andreas. You couldn't think straight. You shouldn't blame yourself anymore. Option 1 of 2 I let my family down. I let you down. Player says I couldn't stop Peter, couldn't save Tassing. I couldn't even save more than a couple armfuls of books. Casper says you did what you could, Master. Everyone knows you did. And that's all any of us can do. Player says all right, Casper. Thank you. Casper says thank you for everything you taught me. Player says wait, what happened? This was the way out. Before I started talking to Casper, I know this was the way out. Beatrice says your mind is fighting itself, Andreas. It remembers the pain of life. It's trying to protect you from it. Player says Beatrice. Beatrice says yes. Player says I thought you were gone. Beatrice says you brought me back. Player says oh. So, what do I do now? Beatrice says keep going. August says. Option 1 of 2 2. Player says it's been so many nights, so many years without seeing your face. I thought I had forgotten it. August says. Option 1 of 2 I know there's nothing I could have done, but. Option 2 of 2 I knew you were still here, though. Option 1 of 2 I know there's nothing I could have done, but. Player says that doesn't make me feel any less guilty. It's always there under the surface, no matter how I try to bury it. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. August says. Player says I. August says it's alright. Player says. W what? August says it's alright, Daddy. Player says. It is. August says you don't have to hide here anymore. Option 1 of 2 I am scared, August. Option 2 of 2 but what about you? And Casper? Option 1 of 2 I am scared, August. August says I know. But that's why you can't stay. There are people who need you. Option 1 of 2 what if I can't help them? Option 2 of 2 it's so hard to let you go. Option 1 of 2 what if I can't help them? Option 2 of 2 it's so hard to let you go. August says I know, Daddy. But you have to. Player says I know. You're right. Thank you. August says I love you, Daddy. Player says I love you, too. Good night, August. August says good night. Player says they shifted again. The walls. Beatrice says it's still trying to protect you. Player says no. Beatrice says it's not. Player says no, no, I don't have to do this. This is my mind. My maze. And I'm leaving. Beatrice says good. But this next part might be confusing. Player says what? I don't understand. I don't understand any of this. Option 1 of 2, why are you holding the maze? Option 2 of 2, did I make this? Option 1 of 2, why are you holding the maze? Option 1 of 2, why are you holding the maze? Beatrice says two things are merging in your mind. Player says you and. Beatrice says there are layers to everything, even our memories. Over time, the foundations become buried. We can no longer recall how we got here, no longer recall what came before. Player says, and what came before? Beatrice says, Our Lady, watching over the labyrinth as I watch over you. And even this has roots that reach deep into the past. There was not always a lady to watch over the labyrinth. But there was a labyrinth. Player says what? I don't understand. Sister Emily. Is this real? Am I still in my mind? Emily says you are here, with me. And we are here in spirit. Option 1 of 2, are we still in the ruins? Option 2 of 2, you looked like Beatrice a moment ago. Option 1 of 2, are Emily says we are in the tabernacle. The heart of the labyrinth. Your spirit was wandering and the Lord brought you here. Player says, but I don't understand. How did you leave your cell? Emily says, I have not. We are only here in spirit, Andreas. Option 1 of 3, are you here to save me? Option 2 of 3, I am seeing things. This isn't real. It can't be. Option 2 of 3, I am seeing things. This isn't real. It can't be. Option 3 of 3, am I having a vision? Option 1 of 3, are you here to save me? Emily says I am here to serve the Lord's will. If it is His will that I save you, I will. Magdalene says, Andreas. Sister Emily. What are you doing here, sister? Emily says this is the center of the labyrinth. The tabernacle. It is where the Lord sends my spirit to do His will. He has also guided your spirits here. There must be a purpose to it. Option 1 of 3, sister, we're looking for the Mithraeum. Is this it? Option 2 of 3, the Lord's will? What do you mean? Option 3 of 3, no, this isn't my spirit. I walked here, through the aqueduct. Option 3 of 3, no, this isn't my spirit. I walked here, through the aqueduct. Option 1 of 3, sister, we're looking for the Mithraeum. Option 2 of Emily says I do not know myself. I do not dare to comprehend, only to serve. And it is my duty to answer when I am called. The Lord has called me to this place for many years. He has always made His will known to me. Soon, He will make it known to you. Andrea says, sister, how does your spirit come to this place? Emily says, through the door between life and death. When my spirit hears the call, it descends through my grave. Here the Lord tells me what messages I must bear, and to whom. Option 1 of 2, you deliver messages. Option 2 of 2, how? It was almost impossible for us to reach this place. Option 1 of 2, you deliver messages. Option 2 of 2, how? It was almost impossible for us to reach this place. Amelie says I used to think my affliction, my pain, was a curse. I know now that it was a gift from God. A gift that allows me to bend my body as I bend my soul to his will. There is no place in Tassing or Kearsarge he cannot reach through me. Andreas says wait. Amelie says I thought I had given up the pen forever, until the visions returned. Andreas says no. Amelie says when fire took my abbey, I couldn't save my sisters. Not one. All I could grab was a single book and a bolt of purple ink cloth. I couldn't understand why God had spared me alone. But he showed me. God had a higher purpose for me, for my hand. Father Thomas explained it to me. He makes everything clear. He tells me what I must do, what the Lord wills me to do. Andreas says it was you. This whole time, you wrote the notes. Magdalene says I found one by my dad when he was attacked. Andreas says Sister Emily, you pushed those people into committing murder. Emily says what? No. No. That can't be true. The Lord would not use me for such a purpose. Option 1 of 3 calm yourself, sister. We'll figure this out. Option 2 of 3 but that's what happened, sister. You wrote those notes. Option 3 of 3 maybe it wasn't the Lord's will, but your own. Option 2 of 3 but that's what happened, Andreas says and people were murdered because of them. Emily says no. I wouldn't. He wouldn't. There was nothing in his messages about murder. No no no. I am not here. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. Thomas says Sister Emily, SHH, it's alright. Magdalene says Father Thomas. How did you get down here? Thomas says Tassing is an old place. It's buried many ancient roads and tunnels over the centuries. People walk above the hidden ways every day without even knowing it. Though in truth it was Sister Emily who rediscovered them first. And found this place. Andreas says Father Thomas, did you? Thomas says in other circumstances I would be overjoyed to see you, Andreas. In truth, I am still happy you are alive. Thank God. But I think the occasion of this reunion leaves little to rejoice about. Andreas says you. Option 1 of 2 you knew about this place. Option 2 of 2 you and Sister Emily were behind all of the murders. Option 1 of 2 you knew about this place. Option 2 of 2 you and Sister Emily were behind all of the murders. Thomas says no, she had no part in this. Andreas says but the notes. She wrote them. Thomas says she did, but she did not understand their purpose. I guided her. I told her what to write. Magdalene says to what end? What was the point of all of this? Thomas says look around you. What do you see? Option 1 of 2 paintings of Saint Moritz and Saint Sasha. Option 2 of 2 Roman ruins. Option 1 of 2 paintings of Saint Moritz and Saint Sasha. Thomas says look closer. Andreas says no, it's Mars. Magdalene says and Diana. I don't understand. Thomas says it's Saint Moritz and Saint Sasha. And Mars and Diana. Option 1 of 2, how can it be both? Option 2 of 2, the saints are the gods. Thomas says when the Romans left Tassing, their buildings, their temples, their statues remained. Christians settled here centuries later. They found time-worn fragments of that imperial grasp. This statue of Mars Pater that once watched over the Roman fields stood there still, headless and nameless. The settlers believed it was Saint Moritz, who was already a legend where they had come from. They found the shrines to Satia and, not understanding she was an aspect of Diana, believed she was another local saint. Option 1 of 2, so the people turned them into saints. Option 2 of 2, why didn't the church do something? Thomas says do what? No doubt the priests who came here in those early days were just as ignorant of what they were seeing. There was no known account of what the Romans did and left here. Andrea says except for Historia Tascia. Thomas says but Historia Tascia was not known then. Perhaps it had not even been written then. Who knows how long that book had been lost for before it made its way to Father Matthias. Andrea says and you killed him for it? Thomas says, yes. With poison. No one suspected. Option 1 of 2, wait, what? You killed someone? Option 2 of 2, hold on, who was Father Matthias, again? Option 1 of 2, wait, what? You killed someone? Thomas says may God forgive me. I did, yes. When Father Matthias learned that there was no evidence that Saint Moritz had ever come to Tassing, that the shrine to him in the meadow was a statue of Mars that the Romans had erected hundreds of years ago, that Saint Satia was the Roman goddess Diana, he resolved to deal with it. Andrea says and you resolved to deal with him. Thomas says Andreas, our people believe in Saint Moritz. They believe in the miracles God has worked through his hand. And they believe in the legend of Saint Satia, that she helped Moritz and watches over Tassing still. Option 1 of 2, why does it matter if they were wrong, if the saints weren't here? Option 2 of 2, and that was worth killing the abbot. Option 1 of 2, why does it matter? Thomas says then what does that mean for the hand of Saint Moritz? What does it mean for the people who prayed to him, to Saint Satia, and believed their prayers were answered? What does it mean for the church that has given people hope, fixed like a false star in a dark sky? If the people have reason to doubt the validity of the saints, can they doubt the church? Can they doubt the gospel, the word of God? Option 1 of 3, the saints themselves have doubts, Father. Option 2 of 3, perhaps some would, but you've always told us that we have to accept Christ of our own free will. Option 3 of 3, do you have so little faith in ordinary people, Father Thomas? Option 1 of 3, Magdalene says Saint Augustine struggled greatly, as did Saint Flora. Thomas says yes, of course, but they are saints. They possess a deep and abiding faith that carries them through that doubt. The people of Tassing are, we're just ordinary. Magdalene says do you have so little faith in ordinary people, Father Thomas? Thomas says I have faith in God. And I have seen firsthand what can happen when people become disconnected from our God. When people believe that all just authority is false, that their own education and reason are superior to divine truth. Magdalene says you've always told us that we have to accept Christ with our own free will. Thomas says yes, of course. But preserving the legends of our saints doesn't interfere with individual volition. Andrea says you are preserving a lot. Thomas says I preserve the lie to illuminate greater truth. God so loved the world that he gave his only son. If you believe this, if you truly believe this, eternal life is yours. And saints have walked among us, and their relics work miracles, and they hear our prayers and answer them. Andrea says and the two that protect this town were never here. Thomas says they don't need to know that, Andreas. There are times when God feels so far away from us in these mountains. But a peasant in Tassing can stand in a field, look over our valley and say, St. Moritz was here. God was with us and he is with us still, and he will be with us always. And that is the truth. Even if the legend of St. Moritz is a lie. Option 1 of 2. So many people have died because of what you've done. Option 2 of 2. And you think that justifies all of this? Option 1 of 2. Thomas says I know this is hard to believe, but I was trying to save lives, to prevent death. Andrea says but one murder didn't solve the problem, did it? Because one day Baron Rothvogel rode into town with another copy of Historiatasche. A copy he promised to give to the abbot so Kearsarge could come to terms with its past. And if Father Gernot read its contents, you would be facing the same danger you saw in Father Matthias. Thomas says in retrospect, given how Father Gernot chose to run the abbey, my fears may have been unfounded. Option 1 of 2. Do you think he wouldn't have cared? Option 2 of 2. That sentiment didn't prevent you from doing it again. Option 1 of 2. Thomas says whether he cared or not, I think the abbot would have been more concerned with preserving the abbey. But there was also the Baron himself. Given his provocations, he surely would have told people eventually. Andrea says but then why Otto? Certainly he didn't have anything to do with Historiatasche. He couldn't in the end, his murder provoked Peter and the others into destroying the abbey. Thomas says I never thought that would happen. I underestimated Peter's anger and the peasants' frustration. Option 1 of 2. So you killed him to prevent an uprising, but it caused it instead. Option 2 of 2. You seem to have a difficult time reading people, Father. Option 1 of 2. So Thomas says someone else killed him, as someone else killed Baron Rothvogel. And it wasn't to prevent an uprising, but to stop him from showing people what he found. What he found when he was helping to dig the foundation of the Rathaus. Option 1 of 3. The wall of the aqueduct. Option 2 of 3. Bones. Evidence of some other murder. Option 3 of 3. Something from our pagan ancestors. Option 1 of 3. The wall of the aqueduct. Thomas says no, everyone knows about the old aqueducts. That wouldn't cause alarm. What he found was a stone head. The missing head of the statue in the meadow, the statue at the shrine of St. Moritz. Magdalene says how did it wind up over there? Thomas says the most likely culprits are rain, floods, and time. Magdalene says Blackdill told me that farmers find old tools and pottery in the fields every year. Thomas says yes. And this head remained hidden for centuries. It sat in the and he was going to show everyone that God had favored the town with his discovery. What Otto could not know is that our shrine statue was not of St. Moritz. Because Otto could not read the words chiseled across the helmet. Mars Pater. Andrea says but the man he entrusted with this information, the town priest, could. Thomas says yes. Andrea says and you told him to meet you on St. John's Eve at the Rathaus. Thomas says I could not let him destroy our town's beliefs. Andrea says and you had poor sister Emily write down what you told her were visions, visions she couldn't remember. And deliver them in the dead of night to Guy, to Hannah, to Martin. So that one of them would murder Otto, just as someone murdered Lawrence. Magdalene says what about my father? Thomas says. I'm sorry, Magdalene. Option 1 of 2. Why did you do it? It doesn't make any sense. Option 2 of 2. I've lived next to you my whole life. How could you? Option 1 of 2. Why did you do it? It doesn't make any sense. Magdalene says was it because of the mural? Thomas says yes. Claus pursued the project with the determination of a guilty man doing penance. He kept digging and digging for answers about Tassing's past. Kearsarge's past. I was afraid that sooner or later, he would find out about Moritz. Sasha. This place. Everything. Option 1 of 2, so you tried to kill him. Option 2 of 2, remain silent. Option 1 of 2, Thomas says no, I tried to scare him. First with the note. But he ignored it? I thought if I ransacked the workshop, it would scare him off. I didn't expect him to come down so quickly. It was just an accident. Option 1 of 2, it wasn't an accident. You almost killed him. Thomas says I know. Andrea says, so what are you going to do now? Kill me? Kill Magdalene? Thomas says no. Of course not. I have neither the means nor the will to do so. But even if I can't stop you from telling people what I've done, I can stop them from finding this place. Andreas says. Option 1 of 2, no. Father Thomas, stop. Option 2 of 2, what are you doing? Option 1 of 2, no. Thomas says it's too late for me, but I can still take tassing secrets with me. Andreas says, Father, you're going to kill us all. You're going to kill Emily. Thomas says, then leave, and take her with you. You can tell the townsfolk what you want, but if you stay here, we'll die together. Option 1 of 3, Father Thomas, this is suicide. Option 2 of 3, you can't stop people from learning the truth. Option 3 of 3, you really kill yourself and destroy the church just to hide the secret. Option 1 of 3, Father Thomas, this is suicide. Option 2 of 3, you can't stop people from learning the truth. Thomas says maybe, but I have to try. Andrea says, Father. Thomas says, go. Andreas says. Are you alright? Option 1 of 3, yes. I'm fine. Option 2 of 3, I think so. You. Option 1 of 3, yes. I'm fine. Andreas says, good. They must have heard that at the Golden Hand. Option 1 of 3, the entire church collapsing? I'd hope so. Option 2 of 3, what an awful way to end a beautiful Christmas night. Option 3 of 3, of course. Andrea says, what are we going to tell them? Magdalene says, what do you mean? Andrea says, about this. About everything. Option 1 of 2, why wouldn't we just tell them the truth? Option 2 of 2. Option 1 of 2, why wouldn't we just tell them the truth? Andrea says, for the same reason Father Thomas hid it. Option 1 of 3, so we should reward what he did. Option 2 of 3, you can't be serious. Option 3 of 3, please explain your thinking. Option 1 of 3, so we should reward what he did. All the people he's hurt. Andrea says, is it better to punish the people of Tassing? What good will it do to tell everyone about St. Moritz and St. Sasha? Maybe Father Thomas was right about that, if nothing else. Maybe it would break their faith. Option 1 of 2, I think he's wrong. I think the people here have enough faith to hear the truth. Andrea says, you know them better than I do. Especially since I've been away for so long. Option 1 of 2, you came back after all this time to solve this, but... Option 2 of 2, I thought understanding this would feel better. Option 1 of 2, Magdalene says it's hard to feel like we actually accomplished anything. Are we any better off than we were this morning? Andrea says Father Thomas won't be able to hurt anyone else. Magdalene says maybe he never would have. Andrea says. I think you're right. We should tell them. About the saints, the Romans, all of it. Option 1 of 2, I hate that doing the right thing feels so awful. Option 2 of 2, no. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't really help anything. Option 1 of 2, Andrea says I'm sorry. Magdalene says I am, too. But I still think it's what we need to do. Andrea says then we'll tell them. Magdalene says good. Andrea says we should get Sister Emily someplace warm. Magdalene says we can take her to my house. You'll probably have some explaining to do. Andrea says A lot, I think. It's been a long time coming. Magdalene says, I'm glad you didn't die in that fire. Andrea says I am, too. I think. Option 1 of 2 Merry Christmas, Andreas. Option 2 of 2 we should head back. Option 1 of 2 Andrea says Merry Christmas. Claus says oh. Magdalene, you made it back. Option 1 of 2 did you think I wouldn't? Option 2 of 2 Andreas and Sister Emily and I all made it back. Claus says Sister Emily. Was she in the church? I heard a terrible din and the house shook. Is everything alright? Option 1 of 2 I don't think so, Dad. But it will be. Option 2 of 2 our neighbors probably think the world is ending. So, option 1 of 2 I don't think so, Claus says. Magdalene says are you alright, Dad? Claus says yes. I'm sorry. Just tired. Sit by me. Tell me what happened. Option 1 of 2 it started in the rat house. Well, the Rotskeller. Option 2 of 2 I think Andreas might still be a little crazy, Dad. Option 1 of 2 it started. Option 1 of 2 did you know the back wall was part of the old Roman aqueduct? Option 2 of 2 Andreas found an old Roman message there that pointed to the Mithraeum. Option 1 of 2 did you know the back wall was part of the old Roman aqueduct? Option 2 of 2 Andreas found an old Roman message there that pointed to the Mithraeum. Option 1 of 2 Claus says huh. Magdalene says so we went into the aqueduct. The section we found must have been closed off for centuries. We found an old Roman bathhouse. We couldn't go through, so we found our way down to a level under the baths. I think Andreas said it was a hypocaust. Option 1 of 2 I got separated from Andreas. Option 2 of 2 Andreas got separated from me. Option 1 of 2 I got separated from Andreas. Option 2 of 2 Andreas got separated from me. Option 1 of 2 I got separated from Andreas. Magdalene says I was really afraid I'd lost him, that we'd both gotten lost down there. But then I heard his voice off in the distance, and I was so relieved. Dad? Are you still listening? Esther says. I know it's hard. I mean, I can only imagine how hard it is. But we will all do our best to make you feel welcome when you get here. It's strange to think this will probably be the last letter I send to you. So I will end it with my love. Esther. Nazio says Magdalene. Player says yes. Nazio says I am sorry to disturb you, but I wanted to let you know that everything is in order. Baltus has ensured that all of the financial matters will be handled. The money will be forwarded to you via the Reichspost as soon as everything is settled. Player says I appreciate it. Please thank him for me. Option 1 of 3 and don't let him forget his commission for the work. Option 2 of 3 thank him for everything. Option 3 of 3 leave it at that. Option 2 of 3 Nazio says of course, Mistress Druckerin. I did not know your father well, but I know that he was well regarded by everyone who spoke of him. It seems that Tassing has lost many things in one man. I'm very sorry. Option 1 of 2 thank you. Nazio says good fortune to you. Church and Druckers. Church and Druckers. Drucker House. Veronica. Veronica says Magdalene. I can't believe you're really leaving. Option 1 of 2 I'll miss you all dearly. Option 2 of 2 you should come visit me. Option 1 of 2 I'll miss you all dearly. Eva says the boys will miss you even more. Veronica says yours at least. Eva says oh, don't tease him. I think he's really having a hard time of it, despite appearances. Option 1 of 2 he'll get over me soon enough. Option 2 of 2 I'll go easy on him. Option 1 of 2 Eva says maybe. But you are a special girl, Magdalene Druckerin. I understand why you're leaving. God knows you have good cause. But Tassing won't be the same without you. Safe travels and God bless you. Veronica. It says oh, hey, Mags. Option 1 of 2 it's. Option 2 of 2 Otto. Option 1 of 2 it's. It says I'm really sorry about your dad. He was always nice to me. My mom says he was a good man. Option 1 of 2 he was a good dad. Option 2 of 2 she's right. Option 1 of 2 he was a good dad, it says. Player says well, thanks. I should get going. It says Mags. Player says. It says Magdalene. You sure you don't want to marry me? Option 1 of 3 it is a tempting offer. Option 2 of 3 I am sure. No. Option 3 of 3 it's a little late for that, don't you think? Option 1 of 3 it is a tempting offer. Option 1 of 2 come with me. Option 2 of 2 but no. Player says I have to go. It says. Player says look after your mother, it says. Elias? Elias says good morning, Mr. Struckerin. Are you off soon? Player says yes, father. Just saying my last few farewells. Elias says of course. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to know you or your father, God rest his soul. Player says I am, too. Elias says don't let those bohemians put any heretical ideas in your head. Once their pernicious seeds take root, they can choke the faith right out of you. Option 1 of 3 I will keep my guard up, father. Option 2 of 3 St. Moritz will protect me. Option 3 of 3 I don't know, father. I've heard they have some interesting ideas. Option 1 of 3 I will keep my guard up, father. Elias says good, good. Keep the faith. Player says God bless you, Father Elias. Elias says God bless you and your travels. Elias? Emily. Player says God bless you as well, Sister Emily. Emily says are you leaving today? Player says I am. I'm just heading up to the mill in a bit. Emily says I'm so sorry for everything that happened. Option 1 of 3 I know. It's alright now. Option 2 of 3 your home was destroyed. Option 3 of 3 well, that was winter. It's spring now. Option 1 of 3 Emily says. Thank you for helping me. Player says do you know what you'll do now? Will you become an anchoress again? Emily says I don't know, honestly. Father Elias is trying to help me, but I need to learn to rely on my own judgment a little more. It's going to take a long time to atone for my part in what happened. Perhaps the rest of my life. Option 1 of 2 God knows you didn't mean to do harm. Option 2 of 2 you were tricked. Option 1 of 2 God knows you didn't. Emily says he does, but harm was done. I am writing an account of what happened here. As well as I can remember it, anyway. If it is not enough to earn forgiveness, I pray that it will at least illuminate this history of great darkness. Player says good. It's worth remembering. God bless you, Sister Emily. Emily says God bless and keep you safe on your travels, Magdalene. Emily. Emily. Elias. It's Veronica. Drucker House, Gertrude. Gertrude says are you sure you have everything you need, Magdalene? Option 1 of 2 I think so. Thank you. Option 2 of 2 we LLC. I know I'm ready to go. Option 1 of 2 I think so. Thank you. Gertrude says I made you something to take with you on the road. It's chamomile, cinnamon, and wheat flour. If you're traveling and you're having cramps. Player says I know. I'll use it. Gertrude says well, Hildegard's recipe just called for chamomile and wheat flour. I added the cinnamon for taste. I'm so sorry about what happened to your father. Player says thank you. Gertrude says Mother Francisca had us all say prayers for him. And for you as well, when she heard you were leaving. Option 1 of 2 really? That's so sweet. Please thank. Gertrude says I will. We'll all miss you so much, Magdalene. Option 1 of 2 I'll miss you, too. Gertrude says God bless you. Safe travels. Gertrude. Drucker House, Veronica. It's Mill, Elias, Emily. Emily. Elias, Mill. Church and Druckers. Else. Else. Church and Druckers. Else. Else says Magdalene, dear. I wish you'd stay with us. Little Andreas and Ulrich will miss you greatly. Player says I'll miss them also. Tassing is not the place for me. It's past time to leave. Else says you will find your happiness out there yet, somewhere beyond the hills and valleys. I know it in my heart. God looks after you, as he does for us all. Option 1 of 2 that is my hope. Option 2 of 2 none of us can truly know what lies ahead on the road. Option 1 of 2 that is my hope. Else says hope is what drives us forward. Maybe one day you'll come to visit us again, with your own family in tow. Option 1 of 3 maybe. Option 2 of 3 if that is the case, I'll make sure to send you a letter ahead of time. Option 3 of 3 say nothing. Option 1 of 3 maybe. Option 2 of Else says of course. Do right. I sometimes still think of all the lives and places out there. When I was younger, I often dreamed of traveling. Visiting the many kingdoms. But I found my peace. Here and now, in Tassing. Even after all that happened. Option 1 of 2 with the revolt. Option 2 of 2 with your husband. Option 1 of 2 with the revolt. Else says yes, and Lenhart. It was a frightening time, not only to me, but to Paul, and to Anna. It's probably what brought them together in the end. A miracle. My little darlings. Without them I'd never had little Andreas and Ulrich. I am rambling. Stay safe on the road, Magdalene, dear. We're still in dangerous times. Player says I will. Else says Godspeed, Magdalene. Else. Andreas. Andreas says are you sure I look alright? Anna says of course, Andreas. You look perfectly respectable. Paul says you're a little worse for wear, but a good sight better than you were. Andreas says it was kind of the women to help clean me up. I'm afraid I'd forgotten how to look after myself. Paul says some would say you took care of yourself quite admirably. How many men here could have survived in a burned out cellar for the better part of 20 years? Anna says subsisting on our discarded rye, no less. Andreas says I'm sorry about that. Anna says Andreas, we already told you, it's alright now. Andreas says Magdalene. Paul says hello, Magdalene. Anna says are you off soon? Player says hello. Yes, I'm riding with your flower to Mittenwald, and then down the Isar. Andreas says I'm sorry to see you go, Magdalene. But I hope Prague is everything you've dreamed of. Player says if it's half the city Esther describes, I'm sure I'll love it. Andreas says you have a chance to make a life of your own there. God knows I've squandered so much of mine. Use the time you have and use it well. Player says I will. I don't know how, but I will. I wish he could have seen it, Andreas. Andreas says I know. He would have loved it? Player says I hope so. Andreas says Magdalene, if angels carried him down to bear witness, the heavenly host would have wept at it. Option 1 of 3 you should have become a poet. Option 2 of 3 that's kind of you to say. Option 3 of 3 now I know you're just trying to make me feel better. Option 2 of 3 that's kind of you to say. Andreas says we all need words of encouragement. And besides, it's the truth. Paul says Magdalene, I wanted to ask you something about the mural before you go. Player says Paul says I thought it was supposed to cover the whole wall. Why did you leave a section blank? Player says for the future. Unless history is going to stop in Tassing the moment I roll down the road. Andrea says I think your wagon is about to leave. Player says oh, it is. It hardly feels like enough time. Thank you for everything you did for me, for my family. Andreas says. Player says God bless you, Andreas Mailer. Paul says Andreas. Anna says are you alright? Andreas says I'm lost. Paul says that's alright. Anna says you're welcome to stay with us for as long as you need. Besides, you can't leave yet. The children require your expertise. Andrea says oh. Anna says they're up on the mill, the walkway. I'll have supper ready when you're done. Paul says just remember that you're always welcome in our home, Andreas. Option 1 of 2 thank you. Option 2 of 2 nod. Option 1 of 2 thank you. Windmill platform. Windmill platform. Windmill platform. Windmill platform.
Recognizing result document. Blank. Pentiment.
küsste mich auf Deutsch und sprach auf Deutsch. Man glaubt, es kam wie gutes klang. Das Wort, ich liebe dich, ich liebe
New game.